Hi friends, it's Jennifer All here with your Daily Hope. Now be honest, have you ever felt that twinge of smug satisfaction when you see someone who's hurt you get hurt? Well, you're not alone, and the Israelites know how you feel, and so do many of us, unfortunately. Well, God has some thoughts on the matter in today's passage. It's Isaiah 16, and it's the continuation of a prophecy that's concerning the nation of Moab. Now, Moab, they're Israel's neighbors, but they're not friendly towards one another. The Israelites consider the Moabites their enemies. Now, this prophecy says that destruction and devastation is going to sweep through Moab. Their cities are going to be ruined, the land is going to dry up, and the Moabites are going to turn into refugees who are going to have to flee their homeland, weeping, just grief-stricken. Now, as we continue from chapter 15 into chapter 16, the focus shifts from external on what's happening with Moab into how are God's people supposed to respond when they see their enemies suffering. And God tells his people, you need to put your arm around them and take them in. You need to care for them and give them shelter. When you see these refugees coming weeping, you comfort them and give them a home. And this is counter to everything our flesh wants to do, right? The way the world works, the way our flesh works, is we want to laugh and mock when the people who have hurt us get hurt, when they are suffering, when our enemies are suffering. Our flesh takes joy in it, doesn't it? It's terrible. But God is saying that is not my way. That's not God's way. That's not his heart at all. And he says, you need to be the ones to respond with compassion. Now, I know immediately when we say to respond to your enemy like that, there's this pushback of, but about the justice here, because they brought this on themselves, right? The Moabites, they had sinned. Their pride was their downfall. And God addresses that. He says, yes, they have sinned, but guess what? The oppression is going to end. The devastation is going to cease. And in love, a throne will be established. In faithfulness, a man will sit on it, one from the house of David, one who in judging seeks justice and speeds the cause of righteousness. God basically says, look, you don't have to be judge and jury over your neighbors because I've got that covered. I have a Messiah who's coming, and he is going to take care of all of the justice. He's going to bring justice, and he is going to sit on the judgment seat and rule with love and righteousness. As for you and me, God's people, our role is to respond with God's heart in the situation. And how does God treat the sinner? Yes, he acknowledges the sin, but he enters right in, puts his arm around the sinner, and loves them, cares for them. While we were yet sinners, Christ died for you and for me. And as you read chapter 16, you see that as God describes the grief and the sorrow and the suffering, he says he weeps with them. His heart laments. God embraces the sinner and cares for them. And he's asking you and me to do the same. Even when it's our enemy who's in pain, we are to respond with compassion. Now, compassion, I know it gets a bad rep because sometimes people think that if we show compassion, it makes us look weak, or it makes us look like we're condoning the sin. We're not condoning the sin, and compassion is not a sign of weakness. It takes great strength and courage to show compassion. The easy thing to do is to kick someone when they're down, to laugh at them and run away. It takes guts and maturity to embrace your enemy, to stay at the table and have a conversation with someone who has hurt you, to seek reconciliation instead of canceling someone. It is the call of Christ on us to look a fellow human being in the eye and say, I may not agree with you, but I love you and I'm not going anywhere. It is Christ's redemption in us that allows us to reach out our hand to an enemy in need and help them. This is compassion. This is loving our enemies. This is the mark of Christ-like character. And yes, it is radical love. I mean, this is the kind of love that breaks curses and changes the world. It may seem reckless to love like this, and it's not the way the world works, but get ready to stand out, because this is how we become salt and light. So the question for you and for me today is, who is God calling you to radically love with compassion today? Be blessed today, my friends. I hope I see you soon.